Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, what is up, what is good? The king of lighting here today, bringing you guys and gals One Piece Watch, chapter 913, official VIZ official review. Now you're wondering, wait, hold on, King, how is this an official VIZ review? Well, the reason why is simple, because I'm basing my review off of reading the official VIZ translation, which of course is the best translation, obviously. It's the official one. However, unlike the previous reviews, I can't show you, or it's better enough I do show you, because I could, but I'm not going to. I'm not going to show you guys the visuals because I got a copyright strike in my latest One Piece double chapter review, which is annoying. I want to avoid getting further copyright strikes. It is what it is. So I'm going to make this quicker from a review standpoint. I have my notes right here on the page in front of me, on the screen in front of me. We're going to break it down into, of course, the three segments: pacing, story, and character. Give it a final rating, and then boom, we're done. So, first and foremost, hop right into it. When it comes to the pacing component of this chapter, we have about 3 parts. The majority of the chapter is Luffy and Zoro engage in combat against Basil Hawkins. So we have a supernova, a worst generation clash. 2-on-1, but Basil Hawkins has his boy. So number 1 is that, Luffy, Zoro, and Hawkins. Number 2 is that we shift over to Okiku and a town in, we'll get to that in the story. So number 2, we shift over to Okiku and Okobore. Number 3 is that we shift over to Beppo. So those are the 3 components of pacing for this chapter. I'm going to give it a rating of a 7 out of 10, which is a good on my list. And the reason why is because the last 2 are very simple, like they're very quick. A page or 2 when it comes to Okiku, and you have literally like half a page of Beppo. But the majority of the chapter, which is Luffy and Zoro versus Hawkins, is very clear, concise. It's right there in front of you. Clearly the focus of this chapter, seeing what a worst generation clash looks like post time skip. And here we go. And it ends off clearly with them running away. But odds are Hawkins and Zoro and Luffy will engage in combat again in the future of the story. That's my sense. So that's number 1. Number 2 is story. And for story, we have 5 components for this chapter. So, going down the list. Number 1, Hawkins states that the probability of U, and U meaning, we're not too sure what he means from a U. The assumption here is Luffy, but it could mean Zoro as well, potentially. But since Luffy was the last person to respond to Hawkins, then odds are he means Luffy. Odds are, though. But we're not too sure, because Hawkins just says you or your. So either way, the probability of you being alive in 1 month is 19%. So Hawkins, potentially from a story standpoint, is giving us a time frame as to how long Wano Kuni is going to last. Now, it could mean a bigger thing for the overall story, or it could actually be like only a part of Wano Kuni, and Wano Kuni still continues on after that month. But within a month's time, or at a month's time, something is going to happen. Location-wise, not too sure what that means, of course. But something's going to happen where, according to Hawkins, you, whoever you are, Zoro, Luffy, maybe even Tama, potentially, but I doubt that, you, 90% chance that you're going to be alive. Number 2, Zoro is aware that Luffy has a famed blade with him. That I think is cut and dry, though hopefully he will get his hands on that blade. That's number 2. Number 3, Hawkins fights against Luffy and Zoro, but they escape on the Koma Inu, and the Koma Inu grabs them. So it's not like they chose to, but the Koma Inu grabs them, and they escape alongside with Otsuru, I should say. Number 4, Otama can be cured with tea mixed with special herb, and the special herb is known as the Evil Purging Herb. Now, that does sound very important, and I'm not too sure if things like yokai exist when it comes to Wano Kuni. Whatever Oda wants to do, he'll do it. But the fact that the herb is called the Evil Purging Herb, I feel like Chopper in particular would have a very keen interest on that herb. And number 5 when it comes to story is that Luffy and Zoro, they're not being chased by Hawkins anymore, and alongside with Otsuru, they arrive at the tea house in the Okobore town, which is in the province of Kuri of Wano Kuni. So those are the 5 components for story, and now we get a good sense as to what's going on here, and potentially something much bigger when it comes to the overall arc. in Hawkins saying that Luffy, in a month's time, 90% chance that you're going to be alive. That's pretty big. And Hawkins, when it comes to his predictions, as far as I can tell, he is fairly accurate. So when it comes to story, overall, I would say that is a 6.75, which is a okay plus to good on the rating scale. So that is the story component of this chapter. And finally, the meat, the substance, clearly the most important component of this chapter, which is character. And for character, there's quite a bit here. Now, there are 5 total parts. However, there are a lot of subcomponents when it comes to Hawkins. So let's dive headfirst into this. Number 1 for character is characterization. And we have a much greater look of Hawkins' abilities as a whole. And this is broken down into 6 subcomponents. So, A, Hawkins' devil fruit is called the straw no mi. We didn't know before, now we know. That is letter A. Letter B, his sword is called the straw sword according to the official VIZ translation, which in Japanese would translate to the Warabai sword. But the official VIZ translation is simply put the straw sword. Now he can meld, blend, combine his devil fruit with his sword in various ways, where we see him stab the lizard and the end of the sword looks almost like a whip. So his sword is potentially unique from that standpoint of being manipulated by his devil fruit, or it's the devil fruit itself, which is the key component to manipulating said blade. And the blade itself is not necessarily that special. Letter C, number 3, is going to be the strong man ability, which is what he basically uses to negate any damage. The strongman ability is the one that replaces his life with those of his followers' lives. So it's very curious where in the VIZ translation it is particularly noted that it is his followers' lives, not like some random dude walking down the street. In particular, it is his followers' lives that the VIZ translation notes that. He infuses his body with their spirits. Now, we know that the devil fruits can operate in some way, shape, or form in a spiritual sense, because we know that guys like Vegapunk can infuse somehow, some way, the spirit of a devil fruit into an inanimate object, like aka Fang Freed. And spirit does tend to be a component in a lot of things in One Piece, but we'll continue with this when it comes to Hawkins. He infuses his body with their spirit, so he takes no damage. And that's how his ability operates, and that's called, once again, the Straw Man. Now, the next thing, D, number 4, is Hawkins' Straw Man card ability. The Straw Man card is different than the Straw Man. The Straw Man are the dolls that negate damage. The Straw Man's card is the stand. I call it a stand because it's straight from JoJo's. But it is the giant straw entity that he created with his sword. And the stand seems to operate based on the tarot cards that Hawkins draws. And the stand, the Straw Man's card, can also mimic Hawkins' movements. When he pulls the card, the Hierophant card of Pursuit, and the stand, the Straw Man's card, pursues. The stand does whatever the tarot card that Hawkins pulled, and then when it's in range, Hawkins swings his blade, and then the stand, the Straw Man's card, follows the motion that Hawkins created, even if the stand is from range. And on top of that, it has the ability to spit out nails. It's somehow produced in a very quick amount of time this very strange sword nail saw type weapon to fight against Zoro. And then on top of that, according to Zoro, it does possess a considerable amount of physical strength. Furthermore, what is also very fascinating, when Zoro took out the Straw Man's card, Hawkins' main body also took that damage. But then Hawkins was able to convert that damage that the Straw Man's card took to one of his followers. So the transfer of damage is almost Inception-like, where the actual Straw Man's card, if it gets damaged, Hawkins also gets damaged. Very similar to a stand. But because Hawkins has Straw Man, then his followers take that damage. He is quite survivable as long as he has an ample number of straw men. So that is D. Now E, also predicated on his devil fruit, is very fascinating. When Hawkins causes infighting among 2 of his men, one of his men was cut down, and the guy that was cut down seemingly lost his life. Not too sure. But as a result, one of Hawkins' strong men also got cut and was no longer active. So it's interesting because even though Hawkins himself took no damage because he had caused infighting by accident, apparently with his tarot cards, The thing here is, because the person that he had probably synced up with one of his straw men, because that person had seemingly passed away, the straw man itself also disappears. From a standpoint of vulnerability, even though Hawkins can prep, if by chance you target Hawkins' followers and not Hawkins himself, Hawkins then loses access to those lives because those lives no longer exist. So that is actually a fairly big weakness when it comes to Hawkins' abilities. But again, if he has, let's say, 100 or 1,000 followers, potentially speaking, and he's made strong men from all those followers, and let's say that some of them are not in the area, then you have to go outside of the area, find these followers to whittle down Hawkins' straw man, or straw men, I should say. So it's fascinating. It really is. Hawkins has a level of complexity when it comes to his powers that you normally don't see in most Duffer users in One Piece. Now, the final thing is F. And F is Hawkins' tarot cards. Now, the tarot cards can not only foresee the future via readings, but can also apparently manipulate others. The Fool card in reverse caused infighting, somehow, some way. And his men would have no real reason to initiate any infighting, so the only explanation as to why they were infighting in the first place was because of the tarot card, and Hawkins himself even stated that that was a bad draw. And then on top of that, Hawkins mentions that he does have cards that can apparently allow people to exceed their limits when it comes to their combat ability, when it comes to their power. Now, whether or not it's permanent, we're not too sure, not stated. Now, I would assume it's not permanent because permanent powers like that require either some type of sacrifice or a lot of power in of itself. And I don't think that Hawkins' ability to increase people's power, to go beyond the limits, I don't think that'll be a permanent power boost. But again, only time can tell. So those are the 6 sub-character components for the characterization of Basil Hawkins in chapter 913. And then from there we have 3 more things. So, number 2, the character introduction of Otsuru, who is a tea house owner in Kuri in a town called Okobore. Number 3 is character introduction of Okiku, who is the tea house waitress of that same tea house in Okobore. And then number 4 is the character introduction of Urashima. Now, Urashima is the current Yokozuna, which is the strongest sumo wrestler, and he is the current Yokozuna in Wano Kuni. I almost said Japan. In Wano Kuni. Based on that title, it is safe to assume that he has some degree of skill in martial might. He also carries 2 swords on his waist, but again, we're not too sure if he is strong. Only time can tell, and hopefully he does showcase his abilities. So that is it for character. And my rating for character for this chapter was a great. It's an 8 out of 10. And my overall rating for this chapter is going to be a 7.25. And a 7.25 is a good to good plus on my rating scale. Once again, a 7.25. And then finally, there are some notes that I want to touch upon, and then we'll call it a review. So Hawkins says in the chapter that when he has 10 of the strawmen infused, he can die 10 times. So in the VIZ translation, it's implied more heavily that his limit is 10, but at the same time, it's only an implication. We're not too sure if his limit is 10. It could potentially be more. So it's not set in stone yet, which is why I couldn't put it as a character component. So that is the first note for this chapter. The second note for this chapter. The tarot cards have the ability to read the future, clearly, which I would surmise is a derivative of Kambosha no Haki. However, the fact that the tarot card, when he pulled out the Fool's card in reverse, and that caused infighting, that could potentially have sprinkles of causality manipulation. However, this is assuming that the tarot cards can work outside of those under his power. Because we saw a strong man fall from Hawkins' body, this was the man that was cut down because of friendly fire. So that man was under the influence of Hawkins' ability from a Death Root standpoint, and it's safe to assume that the man who cut him down was also under the influence of Hawkins' Death Root ability. So the case here could be the tarot cards, when it comes to manipulating people, it only manipulates people if those people are already under the influence of Hawkins' Death Root ability. So the tarot cards go hand in hand with his straw, no me. This also coincides with what we see with the straw man's card stand, because the straw man card stand does not pursue until Hawkins pulls out the card of pursuit. Now, even though it can mimic Hawkins' swing motion when he pulls up the sword, the stand itself was created by the straws from the sword. Now, the next note is that Otsuru herself, when I was doing live reaction, her image to me looked familiar, but I couldn't pinpoint where that image came from. But after doing some quick research, aka Google, I realized that she looked like a woman from a ukiyo-e painting, an old school Japanese painting. If you didn't know, now you know. And then finally, the last note, when I was talking to the tier 3 guys on Twitch doing the discussion for the chapter, they noted that Okiku looked like and I'm gonna show you right here, she looked like this girl from the One Piece X Kyoto 20th anniversary image. But as far as we know, it's not her. Even though I can kind of see why folks believe that it's her, as far as we know, Okiku is not the same woman in the One Piece X Kyoto 20th anniversary picture. And that is the final note. So once again, this chapter is going to be a 7.25 out of 10. And I'm going to catch you guys later. Be sure to rate the video. It is not that hard to do, especially when I know that you all have a device called Zmouse, if I can grab it real quick. Zmouse, there we go. You use Zmouse to, of course, click, rate the video, to click, subscribe, to click on that bell to join the squad, and of course, comment in the comment section down below. Peace, and have a nice goddamn day.